This question reminds me of some others that we've seen in this section. It's got verbs, their tenses are changing, but it's less about like singulars and plurals or past and present, and it seems to be more about just like what's going to preserve the structure of this sentence. So we're probably just going to hear which one is right here. To survive when water is scarce, embryos inside African turquoise killifish eggs enter a dormant state known as diapause. Okay, so there's my sentence. I'm not going to bother with the rest. I don't care. It has to be A because that's our verb. If you want to break this down, the first part is very clearly an extra clause, right? That's what that comma is telling us, is we are adding some extra thing on to the main sentence, and the pink part could never stand alone as a sentence, right? To survive when water is scarce. Well, there's no subject. What is surviving? So there's nothing there. The main sentence starts after that. Embryos inside African turquoise killifish eggs enter a dormant state known as diapause. So there are still some extra pieces that, we can kind of omit if we want to, but they're not, there's no commas telling us that they're extra. So inside African turquoise killifish eggs, that's a prepositional phrase. So that all is extra, but it's not going to have any sort of punctuation marking it off. It's just really separating or describing the main subject. So if we're looking for what makes something a sentence, subject is embryos, and then my verb is what goes in the blank, and it's enter, right? Embryos enter a dormant state. That's the main core of the sentence. So everything kind of has to, work to preserve that sentence, and that's why A is right. If we said any of these other things, hopefully we just hear it's wrong. Embryos to enter a dormant state. Well, now it sounds like we're, again, introducing something. We haven't gotten to our point yet. Embryos having entered, entering. This is another thing we've seen in other questions here. ing words, ing verbs are really not behaving as strong verbs. They're usually used when we want to attach extra information to a sentence and we want to kind of describe something in kind of an action-y way, but they themselves are not usually enough to create a sentence. So they're not going to go in places like this where we need the strong active verb to actually build the core of this sentence around. So these are hopefully questions that just are obvious based on the way they sound. If not, I don't know, there's not much else I can say. There's not really like a hard and fast rule that we're following here other than like certain tenses are required for the sake of creating grammatically correct sentences, and you got to listen and hopefully hear where sentences begin and end and what is a sentence and what isn't.